Welcome to Lead Pods, the official leadership podcast from USMB for pastors and church leaders, where our goal is to increase our impact together.
Hello friends, welcome to Lead Pods. We are up to episode 134 and so glad to have you with us today. So this week I have the privilege of introducing you to Arthur and Phyllis Mann. The Manns have been involved serving with MCC, Mennonite Central Committee, for over 20 years now. They're currently area directors working in Thailand, where they oversee partners and workers all over Asia, several countries all over Asia. They've got some really cool stories and some examples of how God is at work in some really cool ways as MCC continues their work in helping peace initiative and relief and development all around the world. You'll get to hear some really cool stories about that, but we also spend quite a bit of time talking about leadership today, since they oversee people from a wide variety of contexts and cultures and even languages. From their experience, they've got some great pointers about how to do that well. So even for those of us who aren't interacting with people on the other side of the world every day, there's still practical lessons that we can learn that will be helpful in our own ministry context. You can tell from the stories that they share, the experience they have. Arthur and Phyllis both are just extremely humble, modeling servant leadership really effectively in a global leadership context, even ways that they're helping to build peace in some really conflicted areas right now. Lots of cool stories and practical insight for all of us. So for much more about leading across cultures, let's get right now to my conversation with Arthur and Phyllis Mann.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Mennonite Central Committee. MCC and Mennonite Brethren churches work together in various countries, responding to disasters, supporting development, and strengthening peace-building skills. Please pray and give as you can to support people who are in crisis or who struggle to meet the basic needs of their families in the more than 40 countries where MCC works. Visit donate.mcc.org or call toll-free at 1-888-563-4676.
All right, friends. Well, today I'm excited to introduce you to two new friends to Lead Pods. Today we're joined by Phyllis and Arthur Mann. They're joining us from Manitoba, Canada, but that is not where they spend most of their time, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So, Arthur and Phyllis, thank you so much for spending some time with us. It's great to get to know you today.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Thank you.
We're looking forward to some conversation. Yeah.
So, if you want more introduction, we can just
jump in.
We're working for Mennonite Central Committee, and we have been for quite some time. Presently, we're based in Chiang Mai in Thailand, but we oversee programming that MCC has in Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, Indonesia, South Korea, and North Korea.
Wow. And that's awesome. I know you've been with MCC for a while, right? 19 years, is that right?
Together.
Yeah, it depends how you count it, but
okay.
Yeah, so we've served together in Sudan and Laos and Egypt, and then now we're based in Chiang Mai, Thailand.
Wow, yeah. Very cool. So now Manitoba, were you both kind of born and raised there, MB roots, or what's kind of the origin story? How did we get to where we are today?
Yeah, so we are the typical Mennonite immigrant story coming from Russia, which is now Ukraine. The Mennonites all came here in the 1920s. And so anyway, my family got a farm given to them by the government. And so they settled in rural Manitoba and went to a rural MB church. And so I was raised in that rural MB church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and my mom was a Jansen and had a farm. The Jansens had a big farm north of Morden, Manitoba. And then my dad is a rhymer. And so I grew up as a rhymer as well. Yeah, and so we went to, it was called the Morden MB Church. It's changed now to Hillside Community Church. Yeah.
Very good. So MB through and through. That's great.
Yeah.
What about MCC? What kind of drew you to MCC, and how did you get started there?
Yeah, so I say that I did partly grow up in Morden, Manitoba, but also I had an international childhood. So my parents worked with MCC. They joined right before I was born. So I was born in Winnipeg, and then right away we moved to Nigeria. So I went with them later as well with MCC to Jamaica, and then after that to Lesotho. So
Wow.
that's how I grew up. And so being with MCC for me was just a normal way to be. And that's kind of how we raised our kids as well. So that was like a normal childhood. It's in my blood, the living overseas and being with MCC.
And for me, it was more just having an interest in the world. So my mother's father liked to travel. And I think one of the craziest things they did was they drove from Manitoba all the way to Paraguay.
Wow.
Or
Not
something.
one afternoon, but
No, but I mean, just to see distant relatives there or something. They went around
Wow.
Europe as well. And so they'd come back with all these cool things. And so like we were all interested in the traveling and the world. So I think it started with that. But yeah, I didn't go anywhere until my first time with MCC when I was 22, and I went in with the European Mennonite Work Exchange Program. Lived in France for a year as a farm assistant on a dairy farm. I milked cows for a year.
Wow.
That's my first MCC experience. So I got the orientation in Akron and got introduced to MCC like firsthand.
Yeah. Very cool. And our listeners will know about MCC. We've had several people from MCC on before, and a lot of our churches are active with MCC. But I guess before we go too far, MCC, Mennonite Central Community or Committee, I think a lot of times people just say, oh, it's relief efforts. Like I think that's kind of the short thing is there's relief efforts around the world. So what's kind of the little bit longer version of that? How do you kind of sum up the work that MCC does?
Sure. Well, I just happen to have this handy thing here with the vision and mission, and I'll read it.
Perfect.
It's not long, Matt. It's
Perfect. That's great.
Mennonite Central Committee, a worldwide ministry of Anabaptist churches, shares God's love and compassion for all in the name of Christ by responding to basic human needs and working for peace and justice. MCC envisions communities worldwide in right relationship with God, one another, and creation. So you're right about the relief, but also development and peace. Our tagline has those three components in it. Okay. MCC is 105 years old. Started out as the history, we really dug into it at 100 years. So started out with Ukraine. There was a famine, and it was like Mennonites helping Mennonites. And since then, it's grown and is a different model, working a lot with partners and churches. Sometimes the churches are the partners and other partners as well. Maybe we thought we'd share a bit more about the partnership model.
Yeah, so in most of the countries that we supervise, we have a fairly small staff, but they are the ones that are assigned to work with the partners. And most of our partners are non-government organizations that are grassroots, that are working in their own communities. And so they've got a vision and a mission of their own, but often we find these partners that align with what MCC has as our vision and mission. And so we tend to fund those partners in the projects that they're doing. And so they've got all that cultural awareness. They know their people, they know what works and what doesn't and why. And so we don't impose a colonial kind of solution to a problem that we think we have the answers to. So we do a lot of listening. We do a lot of, talking together and working with these partners to make a difference in their own communities. And so we've seen some really great results from doing that. Yeah. We also have some partners that have some space to have some foreigners come and work with them for a little while and just help them with some of those things. It's getting more and more difficult for getting external funds. So applying for funds that come from a different organization or group or government has some pretty rigorous programming that needs to happen. A lot of questions and answers that need to be done. And so we give training and teach people how they can fend for themselves. Yeah, this is much more difficult recently, but with all the cuts to foreign aid. But in general, anyway, it's great to have an opportunity to work with the local people.
Definitely. And I think that's one of MCC's strengths. I think we'll talk about more about that here in just a second, but I want to get into the specifics of what you guys do. But first, I am just kind of curious. It sounds like you both were kind of raised in this little subculture of Mennonite MCC people, which is great. But I imagine it's not just that. Like I imagine that this is something that's, a passion for you, something that you care deeply about. So can I just hear you talk a little bit about more specifically how you got into this and maybe why you continue to be in it for so long? What's so meaningful to you about being a part of this work?
I think it all started by the decision that her father made to work to make the earth a better place rather than working to make a particular man wealthy. That's part of it anyway. And part of it is just, raised in the MB church where volunteerism was valued in the day. Like, we're so old now, but it used to be everybody's volunteering for everything. And it was a big community effort to make church happen and all the things actual.
Yeah. And so we saw people involved in service in church, like the whole gamut of people, women, men, different ages. Like, I know in youth group, we would do a lot of the planning of things. And my mom was so involved leading different, it would always change. There would be seasons where she would be in the kitchen, or then she'd be with the youth group or with the young girls club, and both of our fathers were moderators in the churches that they attended. And then they weren't moderators, then they were something else. And days there was like a nominating committee, and I think they kind of look at the list and they'd say, hey, you haven't done this for a while, or, your skills would be well used here. And everybody took a turn at other things.
Yeah, and it was actually a culture of the church too, so that like the kids would start off just doing little recitals or whatever, and eventually they'd be on or in the choir or doing other things, not musical, or they'd be up speaking in church or sharing or
starting reading scripture, right? Yeah. And my sister played piano for the offertory first, and then
And so anyway, there's lots of opportunity to be mentored and grow.
To become a leader and to try out different things and make mistakes. And
I think that's one of the beautiful parts about being involved in a local church is you're especially in an MB local church, is you have those kind of opportunities. So you all saw it modeled. It was important to your families, and it's been passed on, which is great.
Yeah.
So honestly, that leadership thing is what we're going to be talking about for a lot of our time. So let's dive in a little bit more about, again, you've been in several different countries, been in MCC for a while now. So let's just today, tell me more about what are your roles today, and what does it look like? What's normal, if there is such thing as a normal day or a normal year in your life? What is your current workload and job look like?
Well, so we're area directors now. And like I mentioned, we supervise what happens in the different countries in our region. So we have 4 units of representatives that are in the country and directing what's happening in each of those countries. So we have a lot of check-ins and virtual meetings. We also fit into the bigger MCC picture. So we're looking at changing systems and things. So we have meetings the other direction as well. We're on committees there.
Yeah. So there's an Asia facing part and then a maybe US, Canada facing part of our work. And we try and be the bridge between the two, because sometimes the demands or the requests are, people don't understand the other side. And so kind of being the middle person there, the middle team.
Yeah. If you saw our job description, it's like really long and varied. So everything from like looking after all the finances to looking after all the human resources to spiritual development to retreats to, setting direction and goals for our region. So it's a lot of different things. And in the end, it lands up being a lot of travel as well. And so like last year, we were gone 42% of the time away from Chiang Mai, Thailand, because we visit each of our country programs once a year at least. And if something special happens, something good, something bad, then we might go more times. And we also come to North America or somewhere else for the international program department meetings. Anyway, they're just lots of things to go to. Even like after this, we're going to Japan for the Christian Forum for Reconciliation. And it's the Northeast Asia Christians that are getting together to talk about peace. And each of those countries has some animosity towards the other historically. And so it's really, really cool to be able to be invited into that space. And MCC is making that happen.
Yeah, we're expecting people from Taiwan, Hong Kong, mainland China, South Korea, and Japan to be there.
Wow. Yeah.
Every once in a while, there's somebody from North Korea. Yeah. So it's an annual thing.
Man, well, what an important time to be talking about peace with those groups of people. That's so amazing that you get to be a part of that. So really, backtrack just a little bit. So you mentioned you're kind of in a ways, you're kind of a bridge between North America and Asia. So I mean, this is probably oversimplistic, but the North America side is probably a lot of admin and paperwork and systems. And then the ministry, you're kind of on the ground in Asia. And you just briefly breeze past that. Really, right now you're in Manitoba, and that's where you're from, but your home is Thailand. So you're in Thailand most of the time, but then you spend some time your other home in Canada, but then you travel around. So really quickly, just remind us, you mentioned there's a pretty big region. I think you've already told us the countries, but tell us again the area that you cover and which countries you travel to most regularly.
Okay, yeah. So Laos, and there we have one rep, and she supervises about 30 people. And then we have Cambodia and Myanmar are under the same rep supervision. And they have about 10 local staff and about 10 international staff. Plus they have MCC has a few youth exchange programs. So they sometimes have up to 16 young people in Cambodia. And then Indonesia is another program where we have one rep couple. And they work with two organizations, one focusing mostly on churches and the other focusing on other historical partners of MCC Indonesia, like universities, both Christian and Muslim, and some other community-based organizations. And then we have what we call the Northeast Asia program, and that's based in South Korea. And our rep is South Korean. And yeah, he also supervises what work happens in North Korea.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you guys are the bridge. You're leading leaders. I imagine you've seen all kinds of probably very, very cool things, and I imagine some pretty difficult things as well. What are some of the kind of ground level ministries or programs happening right now that you're kind of most excited about?
Well, pause, because there's so much excitement going on.
Yeah. Well, while you're thinking, I mean, you mentioned, China and Korea and Thailand Taiwan, and we're in this time when it just seems like the world's just on the brink of massive conflict all the time, and including in those areas. So I can't imagine. Again, there's little that's probably more important than focusing on peace right now. So you've mentioned peace a couple of times specifically there, and I'm sure other places as well. So what does that look like? Like when you try to have these peace conversations on a practical level, what do those meetings actually look like?
Yeah, so that conference that Arthur mentioned is one way of working for peace. So having the focus in that one is there are a lot of young people aiming to under 30, but then there also are older people at the same conference who are bringing wisdom and like peace building ideas to the conference, a forum. But in other programs, sometimes there's, gender-based violence in homes. So working with organizations that care about that and that are already working in that, and then just walking alongside them. And sometimes they just need ideas or networking or room to think, or sometimes it is funding. Often it is funding how we help organizations like that. In Cambodia as well, there's sometimes like the Vietnamese are looked at badly based on the history. After the Khmer Rouge, the Vietnamese came in. And so many Cambodians don't appreciate Vietnamese being in their country at all and their neighbor countries. So then just working with that. And so there's a young people's program that Women Peacemakers is working on. So we walk alongside with them, and they do youth activities, and they learn to care about the other Also in Laos, there's a youth program that does peace. It's a mentorship program for university students who are studying in the Faculty of Social Work. And so then they get together and they work in high schools in Dien Bien, which is the capital city. And they do some of that same thing, realizing other people are people too, and they're just different, whether that be LGBTQ or someone from a different ethnic group or someone from the countryside and you're a city person, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, just working with people on that. Then in Myanmar, it's a little more complicated. The situation is quite bad there and just gets worse and worse. But we've done some work, and it's considered peace work, but it's on trauma healing, being trauma informed, working with people who have suffered a lot and helping them, giving them tools to help with their trauma.
Yeah, but it's ongoing trauma, and so it's not like
it's finished.
Yeah.
Right. So in Myanmar specifically, a lot of our listeners will know and remember just the horrible earthquakes that happened just earlier this year. So I'm sure that's probably some of the trauma you're talking about. What other kind of, again, a lot of us just really don't know what life is like over there. So other than earthquake, natural disaster trauma, what other kind of traumas are they dealing with?
Yeah, so it all started with it didn't all start. It's been going on for like over 70 years. There have been ethnic groups that have been quarreling with each other or fighting with each other, and there are all kinds of little armies. But there was a coup 4 years ago now, where the military took over. And so there was a civil disobedience movement. And so doctors and teachers and all kinds of people were involved in demonstrating against the military and this takeover.
It was a peaceful demonstration.
And all peaceful demonstrations, but then the military shot people and terrorized people. And so lots of people fled out into the jungles. And so these city people are living in the jungles and trying to survive. And then they were bombing villages, burning fields, trying to starve people. Then COVID came. And
COVID started before the coup, but then it didn't really hit Myanmar till a bit after. And there was a really bad time where a lot of people were sick with COVID in Myanmar, and the government was hoarding oxygen tanks and not giving them to people.
Wow.
And it's like the military is against the people. And yeah, they don't want any more ethnic groups. The military, I would say, not everybody in Myanmar, obviously.
Yeah, and then after that kind of thing, the next biggest thing was they made mandatory conscription. And so they were taking young men and women and forcing them to fight against their own people. And lots of terrorization, lots of people were trying to flee, but they wouldn't let people travel. They wouldn't give travel documents or permission. And Thailand wasn't taking any refugees, et cetera, and so it got worse and worse there. And now with the earthquake in Mandalay and Saigon, the military started bombing those cities that had been most affected by the earthquake, just to make sure that there was no place for people to find their water or a safe place to be. And amongst all this, they've also been trying very hard to make sure that nobody gets any food. So humanitarian assistance is a big weapon too. And so our partners, all four of them, are actually working to get food to people. And it's very dangerous for them to do so because they could be put in prison for doing that kind of thing because they consider that the enemy. So you're aiding the enemy, so it's treason. But we have these amazing partners that do it because of Christ in their lives. And it's just amazing the stories that we get from people, how they can manage to do that as all these traumas build and build and build. And others still are finding ways to be resilient. And anyway, it's very humbling to work with the people there.
I know that's one of the hardest things about being involved in mission and relief work is there's so much pain, so much darkness, so much hurt around the world. I know a lot of organizations kind of struggle with, like, where do you even start? How do you decide which conflicts to be a part of? When do you let local governments take care of themselves? So for your kind of direct involvement, how do you all make those kinds of decisions? Like, when do you step in? Who makes those calls? And how do you kind of get started when there's something horrible like this happening?
You listen to partners. Yeah. That's what we do. We trust them. Some of our partners in Myanmar we've had since 2008. So like 2 of the 4 partners. So we've been through a lot with them. For example, like MCC requires that you report on the money. Like if we give funding to a partner, they have to report on it before they get more funding. And they report like financially, so an Excel spreadsheet, and then also narrative. They tell a story or, explain what happened. Yeah. And sometimes partners are so busy working, they don't have time or they don't have staff capacity to do that. And so we have this pull and push and a kind of relationship. So then like we get to know them quite well, and it's a personal thing. Like we visit them, not Arthur and I, but Rep or someone has this personal relationship with them and visits them. And so we get to know them quite well, going out for, a meal when we're together. And so just over the years, you learn to trust them. And so when they say, this is what's going on, we're really concerned. So this happened before the earthquake. Yeah, actually, it was very helpful. This happened a few years ago. One of our partners, we won't mention the name because we won't mention that. So they said, we have a lot of poor, because of the civil war going on right now, there are a lot of people who don't have food. So we want to deliver rice. And we're like, okay, well, did you know that there are humanitarian standards of what you should put in a food packet when you give it to a family? And they're like, no, we had no idea. So this partner, it just so happened to be an academic institution. We said, there's Sphere humanitarian standards, and you can read about it, you can learn about it. We'll walk with you through that as you learn. And so they were just so overjoyed to learn about what you put into a packet to give to people and all the other things. This is one example. And so they just were like sponges because they're academics, right? Like they're used to learning, and change is good for them. Like this is improvement. So they learned that, protein is important. So maybe you put chickpeas or soybeans. A bit of oil is always good. Salt or soy sauce, to add flavor, and rice. Yeah. And then you don't give it to everyone. Like you find out who is the most vulnerable. Maybe they have old people or a mother without a single mother with kids, or, you go through the community and give it to the most vulnerable. And don't discriminate don't discriminate based on Christianity or not, Christian or not, because you don't want to build tension or stress or hatred in the community. So, and then don't do it just once. Like then give food, and then maybe a month later, or, whatever, based on how much funding you have and all that, then give it to that same family again. And this kind of routine, or when they get it every so often, really relieves the stress and the psychological pressure on the family, not to mention the physical. Yes. Because it really helps out physically as well. But when they know, now for a little while, I don't have to worry about where the food is going to come from. And probably in a month, I'm going to get it again. And people report that has been so helpful for them. Yeah. Well, relieving all that pressure. Yeah.
Well, we've talked on the podcast before. It's a lot of times North Americans will rush in to whatever country there's a problem. And I think you mentioned, Arthur, MCC is really careful not to be the colonial empire that sweeps in and tries to solve everything, but working with local people. And as you're describing that, Phyllis, I can just hear the experience in your voice, right? I can just hear you say, we or they maybe used to do this, but we figured out there's actually a better way to do it. So we've learned this and this. So I can just hear there's kind of layers of experience in your answer there. So how do you, when people come, whether it's MCC or otherwise, and they're well-meaning, they have good intentions, how have you learned this kind of thing? What's a good approach or perspective as we have, or what have you learned how to do that over the years?
Yeah, I think it's a state of mind, like realizing you don't have the answers,
Right.
but the community does, or the people together, us and
Yeah.
everyone. We can find the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this is such a complicated problem, thinking about Myanmar.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to add, so this group that learned and then now they're giving out packets, they've been able to teach our 3 other partners about these standards. And so
Okay.
they have been able to do that in the Burmese language. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not us, and it's not top down kind of, it's their peers telling them this is how we do it. And it's been so helpful to MCC, to have knowledgeable people doing that.
Yeah. Well, and again, I know there's so many reasons why that's, I think, a helpful and the correct approach, but can you just explain a little bit deeper, like why is it so important that the local people lead this? Is it one part of it so that locals know where to turn for additional help, or is part of it trying to avoid kind of being the North American soldier to fly in, or like what? Tell me more about why that's so important.
Part of the reason in Myanmar is that MCC is not registered to work there. We don't have people on the ground. Our team is in Cambodia, the team that built the connection with them. So we have very routine or regular check-ins with people and support them that way. But to have people on the ground knowing how to do things and understanding best practice is good. And we do, as MCC, we often talk about, like, we don't want to be colonial. And it's hard. Like, Arthur and I are old white people, and so that's like typical colonial. So we work hard on our attitude and just coming from a place of also wanting to learn. Like, okay, chickpeas, is that the best thing that will work in your community? And we also saw the Burmese partners were using dried fish. So these tiny fingerlings, like as small as my little finger, they dry those fish, and it's just super high in protein. It has calcium. I would struggle to eat that, but like for Burmese people, it's just like very familiar, and it's so rich in nutrients.
Okay.
So that's something that they put in the packet.
Yeah. Well, just humility, right? I think a lot of times a lot of us default to, we think we have the right answer, but usually these problems are complex for a reason, and they're complex. They have a lot of different things that we need to take into account, which I'm just very interested in this. So I kind of veered us off topic a little bit, but really you guys lead really a large portion of the world, really. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is just how to lead people in a variety of contexts, because that's, I think, something that we can learn from no matter where we're at. So you're working with and overseeing people, different languages, different wars are happening, different governments, different religions. So kind of big picture first, like how do you go about leading such a wide variety of people?
It comes from a lot of experience. I think these things, I don't know, it really helps to know your own culture before you can figure out another culture. And of course, it's hard to know your own culture when you're in it. So it's actually easier to figure out your own cultural practices and beliefs and tenets if you're outside of your culture. And so I mean, that's when you get to see all these differences and then start to ask, like, why and which ones of these like crucial to my identity and which ones aren't. When we're working with people from different cultures, we think about like what kind of country it's from. Are they like outspoken? Do they speak their mind like really clearly? In Asia, no, they don't. So you have to, like, how do they work on conflict? How do they work on confrontation? How do they,
or what do they expect from a leader?
What do they expect from a leader? And carefully, like, if you want to be a servant leader, which we do, be careful what you say, right? And so you spend more time listening if you can and asking questions than speaking out and making declarations that become law.
Yeah.
So it's really hard sometimes to brainstorm, but anyway, you get used to doing that too.
I think we've learned a lot from mistakes as well. Like, and you need to backtrack.
Yeah.
So like he was saying about brainstorming. So you'll sit there and brainstorm, And we just think we're throwing out ideas, but the staff are hearing, this is what they want us to do. And we realize a little bit later, oh, no. We're just like talking or, building the plan, not implementing it yet. So yeah, it's just like communicating clearly, trying to see what the other people are understanding by something that we've said. Yeah.
So in one of the countries, we had no reps for a while. And so there was a management team of 4 people. And we had these virtual calls with them, and we'd have our 1-hour agenda, and we'd do the whole meeting. And at the last 5 minutes, while we're trying to wrap things up, that's when the real meeting would begin. And so then the next hour would be what they're finally willing to say. And so it's just getting used to the rhythms and understanding what's kind of expected of you, and how conversations work in that setting. And so it's just, I guess you just get to learn it by doing.
And this might be a misconception, or maybe I hope it's not a stereotype, but we often hear about like the honor shame culture. So that's, in my mind, I think of Asia as a place where that's a big deal. Is that part of it? Like they're kind of honoring you as the outsider. So they're like, okay, well, if they said it, we need to do it. Is that kind of miscommunication that happens?
Yeah.
Yes, it can.
And especially by our role, like the title alone.
And the age.
And the age.
Age is a big thing.
Yes. So yeah, just being aware of those differences is huge. Well, our time's going fast. I have a lot more questions for you. We'll see how many we can breeze through here in the next few minutes. But I am really interested in these peace camps or the peace conferences or whatever you're calling them. I think I've been on several overseas trips, and I think every time I usually come away with kind of 2 conflicting thoughts. We're like, man, this culture is way different, and these people are exactly the same. Like everywhere I go, I have both of those thoughts where the differences really stick out. But at the end of the day, like I end up meeting someone in whatever country I'm in where I'm like, oh, if I lived here, that's probably who I would be, right? Like it's just kind of that weird. We have obvious differences, but so many similarities. So in these areas where peace is so rare, conflict is everywhere. I heard you say that you're dealing primarily with students and young people. So is that kind of where you start when you're trying to build peace? Is it just like, hey, look, if you're from Taiwan and he's from China, you have so much in common? Is that kind of where you start? Or how do you even start to build peace in such conflicted areas right now?
Just try to make as many opportunities as you can to see the other person as a person and to break down those stereotypes that they have. And often that does mean like eating together. Like that's a very powerful thing. And sitting at these meetings together and having shared experiences.
Removing people from the place where they are is somewhere neutral. So taking the groups to a neutral place is another important aspect. I think your listeners would love to hear from a peace expert. Like we're not peace experts. We work in it and we encourage it and that. But I think that might be a future guest on your show. Yeah.
I think that's a great idea, because especially with the world the way it is right now, I think that's so important. It does not come easily. So I think it's wonderful that you're helping lead those conversations. That's great. So I want to, before we start to wrap up, I want to give maybe just some kind of practical, tangible things for our listeners to think about. So if for people who are leading back here, and most of our listeners are in the States, some in Canada as well, for people who are in local churches, local ministries, maybe some are on church staff, some maybe they're volunteer leaders. If we talk about just kind of leading multiculturally, or even just leading different people, what are some other kind of leadership lessons that you've learned?
Yeah. So Arthur was talking about check-ins. We have check-ins with our reps, with the people that we directly supervise. And we recently had reps who were much younger than we are, and they didn't, the routine we had didn't fit with them. What they didn't like to plan, like in 2 weeks, we'll have a meeting and talk about things. They like to, at 10:30 in the morning, they send us that we're in the same time zone when we're in Thailand. And they just say, can we talk for 15 minutes? And they just want to like pounce on that problem and then go on to their day. And it took a while for us to get used to it. And at first we didn't like it, but then we realized, oh, this is their rhythm. This is how they go. And one of them is a verbal processor. So we listen a lot and then discuss solutions or whatever. So I think that's one thing is, be adaptable, and kind of sometimes a different culture might just be a different generation too. So that was one funny thing.
You mentioned it kind of took you some time, because I hear that just in my normal day to day, like, oh, these pesky millennials or these crazy Gen Z, they do this, they do that. And often it's kind of they're not mean, but there's kind of this inherent, they're doing it wrong, right? I hear that from people, but it sounds like you've kind of come across where since they're people that you're leading, it's important to you to speak their language and kind of meet their needs. So again, it sounds like maybe it maybe came more naturally to you than maybe other people, but it was a learning process, right? Can you dive into that just a little bit more?
Sure. So it's not wrong or right. And that's how it is with a different culture too, right? They do it differently. And so you're like, okay, it's not the way I would do it, but that's a value in this culture. So we have to do it this way. Or, we're a guest here, that kind of thing. And so also with these reps who were a different generation, we think like, well, we want to support them. That's our main role, to support them so they can do their work. And so this helps them do their work. The meeting every 2 weeks for an hour isn't helpful to them. So then you just kind of talk yourself through it and say, okay, then we'll be ready when they call. If we
keep the goal the main thing, right? Yeah, that's really that. Yeah, that's good. Arthur, what would you add?
Well, it's really helpful if you can go to that country and spend some time to understand whether this is a cultural thing or a personal thing for that particular person. Yeah, spend a lot of time listening. And if you can, embrace ambiguity. Because there are other things that you're just not going to understand. Yeah, good. Very important.
I think Arthur said too, it's important to understand your own culture. Like, I think in North America, we value informality. Like, so the preacher will wear a short sleeve shirt, maybe even no collar, maybe t-shirt to preach. And like, why do we value that? I don't know. So we just like to think through that. And why does the other culture value, that you wear your best clothes when you're presenting God's word to people?
Right.
And so just analyzing some of our choices and why we do some of those things. And it's hard. It's hard to realize your own culture.
Yes.
But sometimes there's a spot that rubs, and then you could say, why is that rubbing me the wrong way? I'm going to this thing and they want me to dress up. I have to wear socks and shoes and it's a hot day, so then why? And why does it bother me? And
that's so crucial. I love that you guys have such a heart for that, because I think it's so important. So that's really good. Well, again, our time's gone fast. I guess I want to get one kind of final thing. If people listening are curious about specifically the work that you're doing, or maybe MCC kind of big picture, but maybe since you're here, I'd love to hear about your work specifically in Asia. How can we learn more? Can we stay connected with you? Or what's kind of the next step if people would like to learn more?
Sure. In general, there's mcc.org is our website, and there's lots of information there. We want to put a plug in for our youth exchange programs.
Okay.
So we have youth coming and going, doing different things. There's SALT, Yamen, IVEP, SEEK, SEED,
lots of acronyms.
Programs. Yeah. And they're all great. And good opportunities for people to learn more about other cultures.
Well, man, it's just been so good to hear for me to hear from you. I can hear the experience in your voice. I can hear the care in your voice. And I think those are the kind of leaders our world needs right now. So thank you for just leading literally around the world and some really important efforts in peace and relief efforts. We're huge fans of MCC around here. So thank you for all that you're doing. It's very important work. Before we leave, is there anything else you want to wrap up with? What do we miss?
No, we're just really thankful to meet you and to have a chance to share a little bit. We have a lot more we could say, obviously.
Yes.
But it's been really good. So thanks for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Great to meet you both. Thanks so much for your time. Hope to talk to you again soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Looking to grow in your faith and connect with others this fall? USMB's free online lead cohorts are starting soon. Join a group of like-minded people to explore real-life topics like defending your faith, spiritual practices, contemplative conversations, and more. There are cohorts for pastors, youth workers, church staff, pastors' wives, and anyone who wants to grow. Sign up today at www.usmb.org/lead-cohorts.
Well, one more time, Phyllis and Arthur, thank you so much for your time today, but also for your decades of leadership with MCC. There's just so many great things happening under your leadership, and we're grateful for people like you. A couple times there, they invited us to take some next steps, so I do encourage you to check out mcc.org. If you haven't recently, check out all the ways that they're at work around the world. Maybe there's a cause that you're extra passionate about, and maybe you can begin praying or financially supporting some people working towards some really great and important efforts all around the world. I think my big nugget from this lesson, something that we come back to all the time, good leadership requires humility, right? Servant leadership. It's not who knows all the correct answers, but a lot of the time the best leaders are the best listeners. I love how Phyllis and Arthur modeled that for us by really taking the time to invest in and listen to the local leaders and utilize their knowledge and their culture the best they can. Lots of really good stuff that we can all learn there. Okay, Phyllis, Arthur, thanks again. All the rest of you, go check out mcc.org, and thanks for checking out this episode. So have a great week ahead, and I'll look forward to seeing you again soon here on Lead Pods.
Thanks for listening to Lead Pods. Make sure you don't miss an episode by subscribing to our show wherever you're listening today. Learn more by visiting usmb.org, and be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'll see you next time as we learn more practical tools to increase our impact together.